What if I told you that a single international agreement could reshape the future of a planet and teach us powerful lessons about responsibility, unity, and personal growth? Would you believe it? Or does it sound like wishful thinking? Well, that's exactly what the Kyoto Protocol was meant to do. A groundbreaking attempt by nations to come together and fight climatic change. Did it succeed or did it fall short of its lofty goals? Stay with me as we unravel the story of the Kyoto Protocol, a tale of ambition, challenges, and the lessons for our future. Think about the choices we make every day. Some of them might seem small, but they add up over time, shaping our lives and the world around us. Now, imagine if world leaders made choices with that same awareness. Back in the 1980s and 90s, scientists began sounding alarms about rising global temperatures caused by greenhouse gas emissions. These gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide trap heat in our atmosphere, leading to what we call the greenhouse effect. The consequences: melting ice caps, rising sea level, and unpredictable weather patterns, and threats to biodiversity. Just like our personal decisions can impact our future, the decisions made by countries and global leaders have long-term consequences for our planet. By the mid 1990s, it became clear that individual countries couldn't solve this problem alone. Climate change knows no borders, and its impact was, and still is, a global crisis. The world needed a collective solution, and in 1997, the Kyoto Protocol was born at the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Kyoto, Japan. It was a moment of realization, just like in our personal lives, where we recognize that we can't achieve big goals alone. We need teamwork, responsibility, and accountability. Now, here's where things get interesting. The Kyoto Protocol was not just another environmental agreement. It was unique because it was legally binding. It set specific emission reduction targets for 37 industrialized countries and the European Union. These targets vary depending on each country's level of development and historical emissions. The idea was simple. Countries that had contributed the most to greenhouse gases emissions should bear the biggest responsibility for cutting them. But the protocol also introduced something revolutionary: mechanisms to help countries meet their targets. For example, first, emission trading. Countries that reduced emissions below their targets could sell their excess carbon credits to others. 2. Clean Development Mechanism or CDM. Developed countries could invest in emission reduction projects in developing countries and earn credits for doing so. 3. Joint implementation, similar to CDM but between industrialized countries. These mechanisms were designed to make emission reductions more flexible and cost effective. This reminds me of something we experience in life: the importance of adaptability. When we set personal goals, whether it is getting fit, starting a business, or improving relationships, sometimes the direct approach isn't enough. We need to find creative ways to reach our objectives. Despite its groundbreaking approach, the Kyoto Protocol faced significant challenges. For one, the United States, one of the world's largest emitters of greenhouse gases, never ratified the agreement. Why? The US government argued that the protocol unfairly exempted developing countries like China and India from binding targets, even though they were rapidly becoming major polluters. This decision by the US created a ripple effect and raised questions about the protocol's fairness and effectiveness. Another challenge was compliance. While some countries met their targets, others struggled. For instance, Canada initially committed to reducing emissions by 6% below 1990 levels, but withdrew from the protocol in 2011, citing economic concerns and the difficulty of meeting its targets. One notable legal case in this context is the People's Climate Change of 2021 in Europe. Families from various countries sued the European Union, arguing that its climate policies under the Kyoto Protocol and later agreements were insufficient to protect their fundamental rights. This case is a powerful reminder that legal commitments and real world implementations don't always align, much like in our own lives, where setting goals is one thing but following through is another. Now, let's talk about the impact of the Kyoto Protocol. While it did succeed in raising global awareness and setting a framework for future climate agreements, its overall effectiveness is debatable. Critics argue that the emission reductions achieved were too small to make a significant dent in global warming. Others point out that the absence of major emitters like the US and the lack of binding targets for developing countries limit its impact. But here's the silver lining. The Kyoto Protocol paved the way for the Paris Agreement in 2015. Unlike Kyoto, the Paris Agreement involves all countries, developed and developing alike, and focuses on limiting global temperature rise to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. It's a more inclusive and flexible framework built on the lessons learned from Kyoto. So, what can we learn from the story of the Kyoto Protocol? First, it reminds us that tackling climate change requires collective effort and innovation. Second, it shows the importance of balancing ambition with practicality. And finally, it underscores the need for global unity because when it comes to saving our planet, we are all in this together. Just like in our personal lives, progress requires commitment, resilience, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Before you go, let me ask you this. Do you think international agreements like the Kyoto Protocol are enough to combat climate change? Or do we need a completely different approach? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel for more engaging content. Together, let's stay informed and inspired to make a difference. See you in the next video. Take care. Bye.